In previous videos, we've looked at the Android development environment and how we need to get it set up. We've also looked at terms used in development, activities, layouts, intents for Android development, and then we've also looked at some class and object terms, some general programming terms like classes, which are nouns, which are templates, say what attributes are, and then objects, which we create from classes. And when we create an object, we give values to attributes. And then also methods, which are verbs, and variables, which are named and typed locations in memory. In this video, I'm going to use UC's virtual lab to create our first Android application and make sure it runs, make sure we have our environment set up properly. I'm also going to create an AVD, or an Android virtual device. An Android virtual device is an emulator for an Android device. Now, this is where there's a bit of difference between those of us in the Android programming world and our friends over in the iPhone programming world. There are two different models. What is an iPhone? If I say iPhone, you probably get an image in your head of an iPhone. That's no surprise, is it? And you know what an iPhone looks like, and you can describe it to me. Now I'm going to tell you an Android phone and what image appears in your head. For everybody watching this video, it's probably a different image. Where when I said iPhone, it was probably one of maybe 2 or 3 images that popped into your head. But for Android, it's a different image that pops in your head, because Android is an operating system that can run on a variety of hardware made by a variety of manufacturers, where iPhone runs on exactly one piece of hardware, or rather different versions of hardware made by the same manufacturer. So what are the advantages and disadvantages of that? The advantage of iPhone is that you know exactly what the dimensions are of this phone. You know exactly what the phone is going to look like. You know exactly what the resolution is going to be. It's a very standard piece of hardware. The advantage of Android, on the other hand, is the free market. The best device wins. And there's innovation that comes from the different hardware manufacturers. You have choices. You can go in to the store and pick what you want. I recently upgraded my phone. I had a Motorola, I think it was a Razr, like that phone. I just upgraded my own phone, spent naturally a long time looking at phones, and eventually settled on the LG G2. And I am very, very impressed with this phone. It has things like wireless charging, and the battery life is amazing. I don't think the whole time I've owned the phone, I've never seen the battery go below 50%, and that's even after not charging it for 2 days straight. So these are the things that multiple hardware manufacturers will bring. Is they will bring innovations as they compete with each other. So each model has its benefits. For us as programmers, there is a little caveat there. That means that we want to test our software on more than one device. We want to test our software on more than one device in Android, because we want to make sure that it works on multiple devices. Now, it's a little bit tricky. How do we do that? There are 3 ways we can test our software on more than one device. Number 1, test it on our own device and have our friends test it on theirs. Rely on your friends to test your app. A very good approach. Number 2, when you do buy a new phone, if your old phone is still operational, keep it. Get a different kind of phone when you get a new phone. Keep your old phone as a testing device. I always do that. And it's important to not forget about your old phone. My old Motorola Razr, I keep on the charger to make sure that its battery stays alive. And as a matter of fact, when I do go out and GPS plants, I usually take my G2, my current active phone, my Motorola Droid, and also I take a tablet. I take all 3 with me, so if one loses battery life or something goes wrong, I still have a couple of backups. So keep different versions of hardware. Third option is to use emulators. Okay, With the Android development software, we get something called an AVD, or an Android virtual device. And we can set up virtual devices or software that mimics a real device with different resolutions, different versions of Android, different processors, and different configurations. So we can take our software and we can test it on different devices virtually. So we're going to take a look at that. Let's start with a very simple Android program. Again, I'm here in the virtual lab, and hopefully I haven't timed out on my 4-hour VPN yet. I might need to relog in. But to start a very simple Android project, I'm simply going to choose, and I've started Eclipse, so I'm in Eclipse right now. If you don't remember how to do that, see one of the previous videos. Basically, we look for an Eclipse shortcut, or we go to the directory where Eclipse was unzipped, and we simply double click on Eclipse exe. I'm going to choose File, New Project, and click. I'm going to choose Android Application Project, and I'm going to choose Next. Now, the project I'm going to work on in this class is going to be a watered down but very similar example of the plantplaces.com mobile app that is available on the Google Play Store. So I'm going to take a lot of the things that I did with Plant Places Mobile. For example, the ability to GPS a plant. We're going to look at that, and the ability to search for plants. And I'm going to replicate a lot of that in our class this semester. So the application name, I'm going to call it Plant Places Mobile 14SS, 14 spring semester. Not a big surprise, I use the same example in many different classes. Now the package name. The package name is typically our website address in reverse. So if you take a look at this, the website for Plant Places is, guess what? plantplaces.com. So a good website name would be com.plantplaces. I'm sorry, a good package name would be com.plantplaces, and then the name of our project, Plant Places Mobile 14SS. So com.plantplaces.plantplacesmobile 14SS. Now, what we need to decide is what is the minimum version of Android that this is qualified to run on. We're saying Android 2.2, which is API 8. What's the target? What would we like to run on? We're saying here 4.3. And then compile with 4.4 at the time of this recording. That is the latest version. So, okay, why is this important? Well, if you take a look, you see we go all the way from 2.2 to 4.4, and there are several iterations in between 2.2 and 4.4. The higher the minimum number, the more stuff you can do, the more new stuff you can put in your app. So we generally, as developers, the higher this minimum number is, the more flexibility we have, the more stuff we can do. On the other hand, the higher that number is, the fewer people can use our software. Because if I say the minimum SDK is 4.3, I'm ruling out a lot of people who have older Android phones. So this is a very careful balance that we have to make sure we coordinate with. Let's look at real life. This is my developer view of Plant Places Mobile. So for me as a developer, somebody who's released an app, this is the Google Play Store as I see it for the app that I own. What I can do here is I can click and go to statistics. And this is really interesting stuff. When I go to statistics, I can see things like the device that people are using. Most common is the Galaxy S3, followed by the Motorola Droid Razr. Interestingly, I don't see my own phone on here. I can see the country. This is one I really like. See, naturally very popular in the United States because we've done a lot of marketing around Cincinnati. Italy coming in behind that, and then Canada and the United Kingdom. I am a bit surprised Netherlands is all the way down the bottom. And UK, too, in the UK. I've GPSed a lot of plants in the UK. I would like to see that number grow a little bit from 2. Language, what's the preferred language? Out of the box, Plant Places Mobile supports English and Spanish. And of course, nobody here is actually using Spanish. App version, of the version of the app that I released, what are people using? The vast majority of people are on the newest version, which is version number 7, and that makes me smile. And carrier, okay, by far Verizon is way out on top, 73%. AT&T and T-Mobile all kind of in that next group, and then Cincinnati Bell following a little bit further down here. But here's where it gets really interesting. Let's take a look at Android version. For Android version, we can see that the vast majority of users are on some Android version that begins with the number 4. We have about 37.5% on 4.1, 13% on 4.3, 10% on 4.2, about 4% on 4.4. So the vast majority of users are on a version that begins with 4. However, look at version 2. Android 2.2, we have 1.7%. Android 2.3, 18%. While that's a small percent, it is still a significant number, and those are 32 very valuable customers, or 35 if we add these two numbers together. If I were to make my minimum version something like 4.0 or 4.1, if I were to increase my minimum version, I would not be able to have these customers who have an Android device with 2.2 or 2.3, and I don't want to lose them. So that's the trade-off. It limits what I can do when I have this minimum SDK, but it also gives me a larger customer base. So that's a kind of trade-off. I will tell you, this is something that's gone through a fairly dramatic change as I have taught this course. A year ago, the number of people with Plant Places Mobile on a version 2 was closer to 30% or greater. 2 years ago, most would have been on 2.2. So this is something that's changed pretty dramatically as I've taught this class. So anyway, we'll leave the defaults as they are, and I'm going to choose next. Okay, we're going to leave create activity. Yeah, we definitely want to do that. Create a launcher icon, a little icon that will appear on the launcher phone. Yeah, we want to do that. Create the project and workspace. We want to do that. And I choose next. We'll stick with just a generic launcher icon. We could, we could play around and make our own icon, but we'll go ahead and just stick with the default icon and choose next. Blank activity is good for now. We want to do a very simple project. That's our concern, is just a very simple project. We don't want to go too crazy yet. So we'll stick with blank activity and next. Now, what we'll do is we need to give this activity a name. And remember, an activity is a class, and classes we name in Pascal case. So what I might call this search, whoops, make sure my cursor's in the right place first. And we might call this search plants activity. Activity search plants as a layout name is just fine. Navigation type, that's fine. I think we'll stick with none. Yeah, that'll work. And finally, we'll choose finish. Sit back and relax for a moment. And what it's done now is it's created this activity. Remember, activity is one of those 3 words that we were talking about when we were talking about components of the Android development system. Activity. Activity is one. It's the logic of what's going to happen. Okay? Okay, so I'm going to look at my activity here, and I will expand this window, make it a little bit larger. We see we have a couple of methods. Remember, method has a signature which is unique. Access modifier, return type, method name, parameter list. Okay? Methods are verbs. These are both methods, onCreate and onCreate options menu. And then a class is a noun. Public class search plants activity, that's a noun. Okay? And we know that this class in particular is one that's an activity. Now, let's take a look. Our activity has fallen under this SRC, or source folder. Okay, that's where all of our Java code, all of our Java logic, all of our activities are going to go, under this source folder. Let's explore some of the other folders that we see here. We have Gen, which is generated by the Android Developer Toolkit. We have some libraries. Okay, we have a few libraries that we're using as part of our app. Okay, then this is where our final compiled output goes. Libraries, any other libraries that we might want to use, any kind of reusable stuff we want to use. Then we have this thing called res. Let's look at res. Under res, we have something called layout. Under layout, we have activity search plants.xml. And if you take a look over here, I'm going to click over in the middle and hold Control and press M. This is our layout, and you see it says here, Hello World. Remember, a layout is the look and feel of a screen. We'll go ahead and leave it at the default right now, just because we want to make sure that our application is working, but layout is the default look and feel of a screen. We also have these things called Drawable, and under Drawable you'll see this IC launcher. That's our launcher icon. That's the icon that's going to appear on the phone or the virtual device when we actually launch this. We see values. This is where we can store things like labels and text, so text values. We'll play around with that a lot more this semester. We also see things like Android manifest.xml, which is a configuration file that we use to configure our application. So that's a very quick look at the Android project. If your project looks similar to this, you're probably in good shape. Now that we know that, we haven't made any changes, but we have the basic framework of an application down. Let's try and run it. It's already saved because the save buttons are grayed out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the project at the very, very top. I'm going to right click, I'm going to choose Run As, and I'm going to choose Android Application. Again, select the project, right click, Run As, Android Application. And the first thing it's going to tell me is, gosh, I want to run this, but I don't have a virtual device to run it on. Do you want to create a new one? Remember what the virtual device is. It allows us to emulate an actual piece of Android hardware, but we're doing it using software. So it allows us to emulate the hardware, but it allows us to do it using software. And that's why I say for this class, you do not need to have an Android phone, because we have the emulator, which will do the work for you. So I'll go ahead and choose yes. Okay, when I choose yes, this screen isn't necessarily user-friendly. What we want to do, and this is a little bit tricky, we just have to do it once though, choose Launch a New Android Device, and then come down here and choose Manager. You see, Manager isn't very obvious, but that's where we actually create a new virtual device. So I choose Manager, brings up this box, and I choose New. From here, I give it an AVD name. We can say Android 4.4. What's our device? We can choose any. I'll just choose something with a 400 by 800. That'll be fine. We could do a Nexus if we want. I suppose we could try that. Target. Okay. Let's go with Google API. Okay, that looks good. Hardware keyboard present. Front camera, we'll say emulated. Back camera, we'll say emulated. Memory, how much random access memory do we want? 343 is about right. Sometimes I change that to 768. Not sure how that would work on our virtual machine that we're using, but okay, we'll leave it as is. Internal storage, 200 megabytes. Let's go ahead and give it an SD card as well. I'm going to put 200 megabytes for the SD card. Okay, 200 megabytes for the SD card. Emulation, so that will allow us to actually save photos and things like that. Emulation options, a lot of times I choose snapshot, but sometimes that gets me in trouble. I'm going to select use host GPU. You don't really have to select either. I'm going to try host GPU. We will see how that works. And I'll choose OK. Okay, now we see we have our Android 4.4, platform version 4.4, and I'm going to choose X. Now this is where it gets confusing. We've just gone back 2 screens, and we're back at this screen that we saw before, and nothing's changed. This is where I say it's a bit confusing. Hit refresh. There's our device. Select the device and choose OK. OK. Refresh again. There's our device. OK. And boom. As we're talking now, it's actually creating up this virtual device, and it's going to run our little program in this virtual device. Okay, this will take a few moments. Sometimes it comes up in about a minute or two. Sometimes it takes a long time. Just be warned, when you are creating your application, it might take a little while to bring this AVD up. Don't close it once you have it running, because you can continue to deploy your app to the AVD. Since it might take some time, I'm going to go ahead and pause the recording, and I'll come back once the AVD is up and running and it's showing our software. I'll be back in just a moment. Well, as luck would have it, it's a good thing I paused, because I ended up having to restart. But nonetheless, I got us back to the point where we want to be. What we see now is our Plant Places Mobile 14SS is here, and we have the layout with Hello World. So in this very simple example, we've seen how we can create a quick Android project and create an Android virtual device and deploy in that Android virtual device. These AVDs are going to become very important as we get into concepts like fragments and other concepts that are meant to make an app look very good on a mobile phone, and also make that app look very good on a tablet, as opposed to making an app look good on a mobile phone and then an app look like a mobile phone app that happens to be 3 times bigger on a tablet. Or an app that looks great on a tablet that looks really crowded on a mobile phone. So these emulators will be very nice as we try out these different sizes of hardware and see what we get. So that'll wrap us up for now. In our next lecture, we're going to take a deeper look at the things that we can do with our layout and with our activity to engage the user and get more information from the user, and then provide the user information based on the data that we gathered from the user. So a lot more fun things to come. Thanks again.